I have 6 o'clock, but I'll give it one more minute because I'm very sure that Lori's going to be here. So give it that minute. Here she is. All right. I'll wait till she's on. There you are, Lori. Okay, I have 6 o'clock and we have a quorum right now. So I'm going to ask that we roll call in. So Marissa
Carreri here.
Maren
Goldstein here.
Jonathan
Schmidt here.
Lori
Garcia here.
and Cynthia Kwasinski here. I did, as an announcement, I do have a message from Shannon and the mayor that they will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. So, but we do have a quorum, so we are able to continue on. Our next meetings are November 9th and December 14th. Dr. Leclerc, do you have any announcements before we go on to correspondence?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
All righty. Marissa, do we have correspondence?
Yes, I think it's just 2 items for this evening from Kelly Brown, sharing some information around difficulty accessing the Zoom link for school committee meetings, particularly when using certain browsers. And then also from Jessica Brucehaber about changing the busing policy to use the address of care rather than the home address as the calculating measure.
All right, thank you. And do we have gifts?
I did not see any this week.
I did not either, so, okay. All right, so we are going to open up public speak and I'm going to ask that you signal that you would like to talk and that you introduce yourself and keep your comments to 3 minutes. So I'm going to open that up now, and Amanda had signaled that Amanda would like to talk, so we're going to let you go first.
I just need one thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Or can you come back to me? Be helpful. Hello?
You're breaking up right now.
Cindy, I think she asked if she could come back to her and ask somebody else to go if there's somebody else, just because of that.
Thank you. Thank you, because I did not get that. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Hi, this is Jean Powell-Wilson, and I could speak.
Sure. Go ahead, Jean.
Okay, hi, I'm Dr. Jean Powell-Wilson from Easthampton, and I want to speak again as a concerned citizen and as a psychologist regarding the mask mandate and the potential vaccine mandate. I understand that the school committee has been working hard since last spring to make things safe for the children, for all the students, and that often you're building the plane that you're flying in, and that's not easy to do. I know that over the year, you continue to make decisions that would be for the safety and protection of the children, and I do appreciate that. My daughter was in school last year and graduated, or this year actually, but especially at this time of uncertainty makes it hard to carry through with just leading the public school at a time like this, the whole school system. So as this year has gone on, some things have become clear, and I wondered if you would be open to considering how new information may affect the policies that you are deciding on. So first, I wanted to bring up a point in response to Superintendent Leclerc's comment. At the last meeting, she mentioned that the mask mandate was out of jurisdiction of the school committee and that DESE had already instituted a mandate. And I know that DESE has. So it feels as if it was taken out of the district's hands. But I just wanted to let you know, in case you didn't know, that in Ludlow, the school committee has not implemented a mask mandate. and they actually choose to have it mask optional. So having the Ludlow School District make it mask optional shows me that it is possible that school districts can still decide for themselves, and that it is an issue of responsibility for each school district. Again, I just wanted to mention regarding the mask mandate that Massachusetts Education Secretary James Pfizer even said that instituting universal masking mandates to further encourage vaccination rates among everyone in our schools is one measure that we can take now. So that shows me that mask mandate is often presented in the context of safety, but in this sentence, it's saying that it is used as it's a tool to encourage the vaccination rates. Now, whether you are for it or not doesn't matter, but just the fact that the masks are used for that purpose seems to not be for the safety of the children. So I just wanted to bring that point up, and that it might be helpful to consider some other alternatives. Like I had said last time, the data for children shows that they are not at risk, the 0.00049%. And nationwide, I think as of May, it was 366 deaths out of 74 million children. So for that such low risk of COVID, it just doesn't seem necessary there's no safety issue there's no risk for children regarding COVID. Therefore, there's no safety issue regarding the masks. And in fact, masks have been shown to be harmful. So I just wanted to bring up a few points to just consider that mask mandates may not necessarily be out of the jurisdiction of the school committee, and to maybe possibly be open. I know that we're all working towards protection and safety, and it would be very good to consider what that means. So thank you so much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Amanda, are you able to get through now?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello, my name is Amanda Miller, and I work as a residential support specialist in Northampton, and I've been a citizen of Easthampton for nearly a decade, and I'm speaking against the mask mandate today as well. Many people believe masks are about safety and concern for others, and I am here to say otherwise. I appreciate and advance your time and consideration. To start, if these masks were about health, then the material used would be both sanitized and standardized. As it stands now, people grab whatever random material they can find and they throw it over their face regardless of standardization or sanitation. People touch their mask all day and the inside builds up with bacteria, mold, and obviously carbon dioxide. In order to have a strong respiratory system, one needs to exercise one's lungs to take in clean oxygen and let out carbon dioxide. By upholding this mandate, people are quite literally taking away people's breath. Do you not feel a twinge of guilt when you enforce this unhealthy, unsanitary practice? And I want people to be honest, doesn't something about it feel wrong? Do you not see you are asking both students and teachers to act against their most obvious, basic, natural, and essential need to breathe freely? I ask you all to hear today, are these mask mandates to increase the health and safety of our community, or are they implemented to increase control and compliance? Last week at this meeting, Superintendent Allison LeClaire made a comment where she absolved all school committee members of responsibility on this issue. She said this issue is not under your jurisdiction. However, pertinent regulations clearly state whether to discipline a student for failing to wear a mask is a decision left to local school districts. This committee is explicitly authorized to take no action against students who choose to exercise their right to breathe. With each moment, you all have an opportunity to take a stand against these mandates. When you command a student or a teacher to put your mask on or lift your mask up, you are not acting for the greater good or for public health. You are acting as an agent of tyranny. The best defenses against illness have seemingly been forgotten or neglected. We all know healthy weight attained through exercise and breathing, sunlight, vitamins, and good diet is essential to beating COVID. Masks do not protect us from COVID. The pores on a typical face covering are way larger than the size of the virus and are overused to the point where they are closer to a petri dish than personal protection equipment. Masks weaken our body, our minds, our spirits, and our human connection. I implore all of you to realize your responsibility to defy the mandate and allow children to breathe and see one another smile again. It is your responsibility to reject this illogical, highly damaging mandate. Show your students you will not submit nor succumb to it. If a person feels safer wearing a full-on gas mask, which would be the only true protection, then that person has a right to do so. But it is not my mask that protects you. This is, once again, illogical, manipulative, and contrived. Each person or parent has a right and responsibility to decide for him or herself or his or her children what is safe and proper. I can't stress this enough. Masks are not about protecting the health and safety of a school. Masks are only in place to promote compliance to authority. That's all these masks have ever been about: control and compliance, reward and punishment. What kind of citizens do we want to raise in our nation? Please show your students that you haven't fallen for this deeply destructive ruse. I ask you all kindly to not enforce this mandate, to not discipline students who stand up for their rights. Let people freely breathe and see one another smile again. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else? Now there is Megan Harvey. Go ahead, Megan.
You're muted.
I'm going to turn my video right back off because I tend to have unstable internet at this time, but I just wanted to say hi and show my face first. And so I just wanted to jump on, and I shared this with a few committee members earlier, just to get them sort of updated on the FDA ruling today. But today was a very exciting day from the FDA. They met about the Pfizer pediatric vaccine, and there was a really nice, they spent all day talking about this from about 8:30 this morning until they finished up just before 5 with their vote. And they had a nice overview of all of the epidemiology as we understand it related to COVID-19 in children. The slides are publicly available from the FDA, which is really great for transparency. The slides on epidemiology in children and also on the Pfizer vaccine trial and outcomes and all of that information. So I can email that all to you. I probably will email that to you just because it's really interesting and you know I love that stuff. But I just wanted to come on and just say that we are close to a point where that vaccine will be available. The FDA did approve it. Next week, ACIP will make their recommendation to the director of the CDC. And then once the director gets that information from ACIP, then we will finally be ready for shots to go in arms. And I just am really excited for the possibilities for parents who are choosing to decrease risk for their child, and hopefully we'll see some nice rollout for that. I also wanted to say that there was some nice information that came out from the highly respected Centers for Infectious Disease Research and Policy, which is one of the global leaders in this research, which has notably not been unanimously pro-masking, but some really nice research came out this week identifying the degree of protection afforded by each particular type of mask. And notably, any mask is better than no mask in terms of protection, but KF94 masks and N95 masks not fit tested. So just the kind that you or I would get and put on our face without any fit testing, offer a very high level of protection. So that was nice information to see. And also the conglomeration of those studies shows that there is no harm that has come to mask wearers from wearing it. So nice to see that kind of scientific data coming out. And I just want to say thank you for all you do. And that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm scrolling through. And I am not seeing anybody else. Going once, going twice. All right, we are going to close public speak. and move on with our agenda. So next on our agenda, thank you for your comments, everyone. We have presentations, presentation with Lucy and Jeff. Are we ready for that? And Lori, I have made it possible to share. So we're all set in terms of presenting.
Great, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start off by talking about the Safe Routes to School Parent Travel Survey, and then Jeff will kind of jump in after me to say a few things as well. So next slide, please. Thank you. So just a quick introduction. I'm Lucy Friedman Bell. I'm the Massachusetts Safe Routes to School Outreach Coordinator for Easthampton. I have spoken with you all previously, but Massachusetts Safe Routes to School is a statewide program that works to increase safe walking, biking, and rolling amongst elementary and middle school students. And we use our 6 E's to implement the program, which are education, encouragement, engagement, evaluation, engineering, and equity. So Safe Routes to School, Easthampton Public Schools, and the City of Easthampton are all working to support students who are walking and biking currently to the elementary schools in transitioning to walking, biking, and rolling to Mountain View School safely when the school does open and all of the students transition over there. So part of this effort has been conducting a district-wide parent travel survey to collect data on current walking and biking activity, which we did through, oh, can we go back? Thank you. Which we did from June 4th through June 18th, 2021. And the purpose of this was basically just to collect some baseline data before the transition to the new school. And also kind of better understand the activities so we could know where to target our efforts. We also did a walk audit around the Whitebrook Middle School site to assess the current infrastructure for walking and biking around that site. So we have the report for that, and I can provide that, or if you reach out to Jeff, he also has a copy of that as well. And that just has our recommendations to the school and the city for improving infrastructure and making it safe for students to walk, bike, and roll. So getting into the results of the parent travel survey, we had about a 20% participation rate at the schools, and we're focusing on the elementary and middle schools here. So we had 20% at Whitebrook Middle School, 22% at Maple, 22% at Center, and 38% at Pepin. And we did have to do Center and Pepin separately just because they have different DOE numbers. But these numbers were pretty level with the numbers that we were seeing at that time, kind of statewide for surveys in the spring. So overall, in the survey, we saw higher rates of walking and biking at the elementary schools than at the middle school. The middle school had about 10%, Maple was 43%, Center was 14%, and Pepin was 5%. We also saw that all of the schools' actual rates of walking and biking within a 2-mile radius of the school are lower than the expected values. So the expected values are calculated. They reflect the average walking and biking rates across Massachusetts, but they also account for student grade levels and proximity to school and other factors like that. So for example, at Whitebrook Middle School, within half mile, 38% of students walk, biked, or rolled, according to the survey, whereas we would expect to see 67% of students walk, bike, or roll. Yeah, next slide. We also created a student address map. So this was plotting all the student address data from the elementary and middle school currently. So as you can see here, there's lots of students who live within a 2-mile, a 1.25 mile, and a 0.5 mile radius of the school. So since we did the walk audit, we have a better understanding of the infrastructure near the middle school and the Mountain View school site. The city is aware of that infrastructure and of improvements that can be made. And we have a lot of students that live within biking and walking proximity to the school. We did see in the parent travel survey that, for example, there were students who lived less than a quarter of a mile from the middle school and they were being driven to school. So there's definitely room to grow in terms of students walking and biking. We can, moving forward, kind of know that focusing on education and encouragement activities will kind of hopefully push those numbers up. Next slide. So that's kind of a preliminary intro to some of the data. I have all of the the parent travel survey reports for all of the schools. I also have the walk audit report, and I'm happy to provide the school committee with copies of all of those, or if you want to reach out to me to ask me any questions individually. But thank you so much for having me. And Jeff is going to say a few words now.
Before Jeff speaks, I want to thank you again, Lucy, and let our community know once again how fortunate we are to have your support at MassDOT and Safe Routes to Schools. And it's a true pleasure to be able to collaborate with you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yes, thanks. I just want to echo that too. We've been working with Lucy for probably at least a year now, and Lucy's been great. She's been out to Easthampton several times, and it's just really nice to have sort of this direct line of contact with the Safe Routes program. And Lucy was really helpful coordinating our bike rodeo. And I know that Lucy and Lori have been working together really closely on the walk, bike, and roll to school days. So those are just all part of what we're talking about here. And so thanks, Lucy, for all your work on that. I'm going to share a quick, I am not known to be brief, but I'm going to try really hard to be brief. I put a goal of my presentation is to just kind of capture what I'm hoping to talk about is coming back at one of your November meetings and seeking a letter of support for an application for one of the infrastructure grant programs that Lucy mentioned. The application is due December 1st. And so it's a little bit of what I was hoping to do is just preview with the school committee, because we need to have you on board. We need to have you feel like this is really important stuff that we're going to try to do, as well as the school department, the DPW, and the mayor's office. All, I'm talking to all those people and hoping that everyone sees the merit in what we're trying to do. To go through this really briefly, you wouldn't expect us to go back to 2008, but our master plan was really well done, really strong. And if you read the education chapter, it really it does a good job of summarizing that around that time between 2005 and 2008, the city was talking about replacing Center Pepin and Maple. So it goes all the way back to that period of time, probably before that. But there was a moment in time back then that those schools were eyed to be renovated or expanded, and for all the reasons that I don't know, but the high school took a higher priority, and so that became the focus, and so that was done first. And then here we are, 2018, we voted to do the elementary schools, but the concept goes way back. The idea of connecting Nonotuck to the Manhan Rail Trail has existed for a very long time, and then the idea of connecting the rail trail to the schools is a reference to the idea that Whitebrook was kind of a potential site. And so I just want people to know that although I'm carrying as many torches as I possibly can at once, this torch has been lit, way before me. The repetition of these goals comes up in 2017. We did a complete streets plan. This looks at streets and sidewalks and connections. And it just happens to be project number 103, but the new bike path connection talks about, doing the connection via a bunch of different sources, shared use path up Hisgen Avenue, and then new sidewalks on Park Street. So, these things are repetitive in nature as we're building towards where we are today. In 2017, the Manhattan Rail Trail, I think the Rail Trail Committee kind of reasserted some of these goals as well more recently. But the idea of making the connection from the Manhattan Rail Trail to Whitebrook has been a goal of the Rail Trail Committee as well. And these connections to downtown and neighborhoods from the rail trail is kind of a really important goal that we're kind of working towards. After the vote in 2018, I was on board and worked with the Conway School, and they came up with this emerging pathways document, which was the look from 30,000 feet up, and looking at ways to connect to the Whitebrook property. And there were really a couple key routes that were identified in that report. This one in particular goes from the rail trail up Hisgan Ave. The map here shows it going through Williston. We're probably shifting that to go through Nonotuck, but it's the same idea. This is what we're talking about. The image on the left is a shared use path. So it's ideal for walkers, bikers, and multi-modes of transportation. And then the image below that is a side path. So the idea is to get these off of the road as much as possible or separate from the road. In 2020, we looked at the other route that the Conway School recommended, which was connecting the plains to Whitebrook. And there's an option for an off-road path. This is rather ambitious. This might be in a few years from now, but this is an opportunity for us to be exploring. You saw the student address map. So we have a really strong concentration of students who live in the plains. A couple images. The downtown plan in 2020 restated the importance of the rail trail and making these connections. We got funding for a temporary bike lane on Williston Ave, as well as some minor sidewalk connections and work. The 2021 open space and rec plan, which we sent out, mailers to 9,000 households in Easthampton. We got tremendous survey feedback, and the number 3 goal is, reiterated here to expand access from the rail trail, connect neighborhoods, parks, and the new school. And then where we are today is just kind of finishing up a feasibility study to really hone in on, how could this actually happen? And it's all been geared towards the Safe Routes to Schools infrastructure program, which funds projects, ranging from $200,000 to $1.5 million. The routes that we kind of looked at are going through Nonotuck, as well as going up Park Street. So there's kind of 2 versions of this, and I know I'm nearing the end of my time. What I'm hoping to ask permission for is to come back to the committee in November. My goal is that we want to make an application in December for one of these 2 options, which is either going through building a path through Nonotuck, which would bring the trail around to the back of the school, or upgrading the sidewalks on Park Street. We have like years worth of work to do on infrastructure to catch up with this move. And so we want to pick one or the other to move the ball forward. And if we're lucky enough to get the Safe Routes funding for one of the projects, we'll be looking at other funding sources for the other elements. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to do, is pick the paths or the projects that line up with the funding sources. So there's a lot of criteria that you want to meet with certain programs. So we're going through that process now. These are just some quick images. If there are questions, I'm happy to answer them. I snapped a couple of photos out of the walk audit that Lucy mentioned. So Park Street, the sidewalks have not, leaving the school going towards downtown, the sidewalks have not been touched in a long time. And so they're in need of repair. They, in many cases, are right on the back of the curb with no separation, which is rather dangerous as you start to bring more and more younger kids out there. And that's the primary goal of Safe Routes, is to make the routes safe and increase the number of people who would want to walk or bike. They looked at the roundabout. There were a couple issues identified that all have a solution. At that time, I think the roundabout was under construction, so some of the signs were not there, some of the striping was not in. And then there's some images of some of the paths that exist that are used for people to get to the school now. And then kind of the left picture is just kind of showing what safe routes is calling poor condition of sidewalks. So there's engineering recommendations, which we're kind of using as the basis for some of this. So that was 6 minutes. So I will stop and happy to answer questions. And I would ask if I can come back in November with a request, from the school committee for a letter of support once we kind of figure a couple more details out.
Okay, Maren?
So definitely want to say 100% support for us finding safer routes for our kids to get to school and looking at alternatives like walking and biking 100%. So absolutely support that. Please come back in November and review that with us to really get that letter of support. The one question I do have though, just based off some of the maps you were just showing and having just come out of the school building committee meeting a few minutes ago, that was approving a pathway around to heading up towards the Williston property, and now you showing a map that might be popping in the backside through Nunatak. Just want to make sure that we're not suddenly, and I'm sure you, as being a part of all this, aren't suddenly having us build something at the new school that's going to nowhere now as we change the location to get to the school. So I just wanted to just raise that just because the maps and the images that you were just showing possibly didn't align, so if we need to make a quick adjustment there. So if you could just speak to that, please.
Yep, I appreciate that, Maren. And yes, I've been to the school building committee. That committee has added a few sidewalks, which were kind of integral to making these additional connections. Currently, we think that any sidewalk that can be added now will benefit people accessing the site. Right now, there are a lot of informal trails through Williston. And so the idea is that while the construction crews are out there to create just a paved sidewalk up to the wood line, will get utilized. The main focus appears to be shifting, a larger, this would be, we're talking in terms of 10 to 12 foot wide multi-use paths wherever possible. So the back of the school is where we seem to be landing for the idea of making this real formal connection up to Nunatak. And as we probably know as a group that, the high school students, a lot of their sports athletic fields are now at this Mountain View school. And so we want to be looking at making that connection so that those people don't necessarily have to hop in a car to go from the high school all the way around. And so going through Nunatak serves that. Going through Nunatak serves as a path that really will get utilized. So having all those in play at the moment is still makes a lot of sense.
Okay, but then it sounds like then you are heading away from the connection through Williston then?
I
don't
think
know if you want to put a map up just so that we can all see that's possible.
Yeah, let me see. What I would prefer, Maren, to do is to wait until, I don't know if the crews are out planning to construct the sidewalk in the next few weeks. That would be a question I would ask the contractor. We've been having various conversations. So the Williston path, is something I would want to talk to the school building committee and Bert, the architect for the project, before I get official on that one. There's been a few questions that have come up, so I would want to be prepared, a little bit better prepared to answer that. One, that's the sidewalk that runs along the basketball courts that are being built and leads into the basically towards the cross country track at Williston.
Correct, and we did just talk about that last hour. So, and they are out there working on that. So, and will be now. So if things are changing, I just would ask you then to reach out to speak with Bert as soon as possible, because we want to do smart construction, not just paths to have paths, I think.
Yes, well, I would say that barring, some drastic move from Williston, like a fence, that path will get used. That path is used. It's the shortest route. But there have been some conversations about Williston feeling uncomfortable with allowing members of the public to cross their facilities. So, like I said, barring a drastic move from Williston, I think that path is very viable still.
I would,
Okay, well,
I would like to first thank Jeff for all the work that you are doing, and I would like to acknowledge Scott Kavanaugh, who is here, and he's not just here as a member of the public. He is one of our esteemed teachers at Whitebrook, but as I've also mentioned before, he is part of this whole committee and part of the Manhan Rail Trail Committee, and I saw his hand raised, so could we please let him answer? Or he's not just the public, he's part of this. Just for a minute, maybe it's something important to answer to Marin's question or what Jeff was saying. Can we allow this just this one time? Or no?
I think so. Sue, you want to weigh in? I think we're okay with just a quick comment on the same topic.
Cindy,
Yes?
that would be your call.
Okay, I'm gonna say yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
sure,
you, and
go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Lori and Jeff and Lucy for all of your work on this. Marin, I just wanted to speak to your one point with that path. I'm a Whitebrook teacher, and so I see a lot of the kids riding in from there. And I think I think when we talked about that, I was actually at the school building committee several months ago when that path first came up. I think part of the thinking there is that path is going to be used whether there's something on the other end or not, because it gets a lot of existing traffic as it is. And I think the idea partly is that if we don't pave a path there's going to be a dirt path that's going to emerge because of existing traffic. A lot of kids go that way regardless, when in seeing the existing traffic that's there. So I think that would be the thought. That was the thought a few months ago. I know that came up in that discussion, and I would say that's from what I see on the ground, that's still the case.
Thank you, Scott. I think Marin's concern, tell me if I'm understanding you correctly, is what we've been talking about at the school building meetings is a certain width of path. And Jeff, I was just getting the sense from you, you're talking about a much wider path. Yes?
Yep. So yeah, no, I apologize for not making that meeting. It slipped my mind that I should have been there maybe, but the wider path, the 10 to 12 foot is going, the target would be the back to go to Nonotuck. The path that we're talking about that connects through the Williston fields is kind of acknowledging that it will be used. And I think we were talking about 5 or 6 feet wide is totally appropriate for that. I think where Williston has made some statements just not encouraging that to be the key access point. So, to not make that where we're advertising, that's the path to the school. But I think to Scott's point, it's going to get used, and to have the sidewalk there, this is, an important time to be doing that. So I will circle back with Bert. I'm listening to what you're all saying, and I'm going to go back and dot the I's and cross the T's before they start to pave that one.
Yeah, so I would just say, yeah, definitely reach out and touch base with Bert about that, because we did just approve that specific walkway going forward with some additional landscaping work. We definitely at the school building committee support additional walkways to allow access. I just think that, and I know that you're very much involved with all these different pieces, but let's just make sure that we're connecting those dots, because different pieces are moving forward, and money's being spent. So let's just make sure we spend all that money the smartest way possible, as I know you do care about it and are trying the best you can. So but I would just double check with Bert and reach out to him, please.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you. And we'll go on. I did not see our student rep here today, did I? Where is she?
She's there.
Hey, there you are, right in the center. I missed you. Okay, great. Do you want to give us a student update?
Sure. So I just have a few quick updates. Firstly, Student Council is currently planning our homecoming dance that will take place on Saturday, November 13th. They are working on getting advertising ready and organizing decorations. A huge thanks to Dr. Leclerc from all Student Council members for allowing us to have the dance indoors. That's really big, and everyone's really, really happy about it. Next, Spirit Week. Student Council is planning a Spirit Week that will take place the week of homecoming. So that would be from November 8th to the 12th. Some Spirit Week ideas include Decade Day and Anything But a Backpack Day. And we are also hoping to include in our Spirit Week a Thanksgiving food drive in which the collections would go to the Easthampton Community Center. Finally, just a quick sports update. The girls volleyball team is having a game this evening against Franklin Tech. So the best of luck to them. And we're all really hoping that they have a nice win. That's all I have for now. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right. Policy Subcommittee. I know that Shannon is not here. Does someone want to take over with these readings?
I will unless Laurie would like to.
Whatever you want to do, Dr. Leclerc. If you have it up on your computer, you can do it, or I'm happy to do it as well.
Yeah, I can read it. It's, this is a second reading for policy GCBC-1, substitute teacher compensation update. Would you like to make a motion?
So I'm just trying to get it up. I'm sorry, I had the other bike thing up. Does someone want to make the motion with the right number? I don't have the agenda up right now.
I move we approve the second reading of GCBC-1 substitute teacher compensation update.
I'll second that.
Okay, Maren,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Curry, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
and Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I can just take all of them
Go ahead.
That's
if you
fine.
want to
Thank you.
just make it streamlined. So I'll move to approve GCBC-2 substitute nurse compensation update second reading.
I'll second that.
Okay, Maren,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Curry, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I'd like to move to approve the second reading of policy EBCFA face coverings update.
I'll second that.
Okay. Maren,
Maren Goldstein resoundingly aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
and Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I'd like to move we approve the second reading of KG-E community use of facilities update.
I'll second that.
Okay, Maren,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye. All right.
That's it.
That's it.
Finance Subcommittee minutes.
Yep, that was just for a past meeting. So all set there. We will be meeting next week to review the annual financials on Monday.
Okay. All right. Do we have a collaborative update?
I have nothing in particular to offer you this evening.
Okay. And a COVID advisory update?
I was at the meeting, but I don't know if you want to do the report, Dr. Leclerc, and I can add to it.
Sure. The committee met last week just to review current practices and data. And I'm happy to report we reviewed or discussed that we currently have over 1,200 students and staff participating in the weekly routine COVID safety checks. And we talked last week at the COVID response meeting about the final numbers for staff that are vaccinated in the district. And I'm happy to give you some data on that right now. 93% of teachers are fully vaccinated, not just teachers, staff are fully vaccinated in the Easthampton Public Schools. 7% of our staff are not. And right now we're working with them to get all the 7% that are not vaccinated participating in weekly COVID safety checks. That's pretty much almost all set. The staff have been very cooperative, and we haven't run into any snags around that. And I would also report, which is information that I email to the committee every week, but this is the third week in a row we have had no positive pools for our routine COVID safety checks and no COVID cases in our schools or in our district, because we also, central office participates in weekly testing. And so it's all going really well, knock on wood. So that's just the information we shared at the COVID response meeting. I will also say one other piece of news that came out this afternoon, but for the public, I haven't sent out messaging to staff and families on this, but the Commissioner of Education did extend the mask mandate for all Massachusetts public schools through January 15th of 2022. So that is what we will be following. And I have had conversations with our city health director around this. We anticipated there would be an extension. So it's not a surprise to us. And we're feeling very positive about it. The city is, I think, also going to be, looking closely at data. And I don't think they're in a rush to lift the mask mandate in the city, although I have no inside information, just, what seems to be the going on regionally. So that's all I have to report out on COVID.
Thank you. Safety update?
No safety update at this time.
Okay. Wellness?
Wellness, no update, just I was very happy to hear the report tonight that we're going to try to move forward with connecting the bike path. And just to let people know, I was on the original bike path committee, and there were a lot of obstacles, a lot of hurdles. There were people that thought it would never work, and look at how wonderful our Manhan Rail Trail is. So I really feel that we can make additional spurs to make our school, our brand new school, more accessible to students, because it was a little bit disheartening to hear that we only have 38%, and it would be expected with that population to have 67% either walking or riding to school. So let's do all we can to support that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, on to our superintendent update.
Thank you. So we have a couple presentations tonight, and we're going to start off with the school start times discussion. This is a topic that we are revisiting. We've been having some conversations about this since last year, and we've just completed a survey for staff, students, and families in the district. I'm happy to report that we had over 500 people respond to the survey, some students, staff, and families. And this evening, we're going to be sharing out some of the results with you. I will not be making a recommendation this evening. I know Marissa's really interested in this topic, and I know she's going to be leaving, so there won't be a final decision tonight, because when we get to the end of the presentation, which I'm happy to share out, we will be talking about some next steps. So we'll be coming back to the group. But I do want to acknowledge, as we start the presentation, Jean Libby, who's our parent engagement coordinator. And Jean was instrumental in putting this entire presentation together this evening. And she has been really she really got the message out around the surveys. She really she worked on the survey with us. And she gave a lot of input into developing the survey, taking some of the comments from previous concerns that parents had, that they really didn't feel they had a place to really articulate what some of their issues were. So we really tried to put a lot of places for narrative responses in this survey. Jean was then tasked with really culling through all the information. So she really did yeoman's work on this project. And I think we're going to, let's see, Jean, do you have this up? Can you share? Jean's on the call. If she
Yes.
can. Okay, want to
I
just put it
can.
up, Jean?
Sure.
All right. And I'm going to do some of the talking. Jean's going to do kind of a few slides with some of the deep data in it. And as Jean's getting this up, some of this information will be a review of information that was shared with you in previous presentations.
Whoops. Yeah, hold on.
Yep.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yep.
My daughter knows how to do this better than I do, for sure. Where's the little present slides button here? Here we are. Oh gosh. There we
Go
go.
under, yeah, you got it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we talk a little bit about, on the next slide, Jean, we talked a little bit about our vision statement, which is a statement that you have seen before. And we posed the question last year, if we're committed to providing exceptional learning experiences for our students, does flipping or adjusting the school start times contribute to a better learning experience? So this was the question, kind of the problem that we want to try to solve for. So that was driving our need to do the survey and kind of collect this information from families, because we wanted to see where people were landing on this. We also took a look at the research. And again, this is information that we've shared with you before. And we also cite the reference for this information, because I think it's important to know that we were not doing this to create more challenges. We were doing this because there actually is a lot of very tangible research out in the national media for us to kind of look at and come up with some questions around. So these are some of the resources that we reviewed. And we thought about, would delaying the start of school be an effective countermeasure to chronic sleep loss? And does it have any benefits to students regarding physical, mental health, safety, and academic achievement? So we're thinking about, in particular, the early start time for high school students, and is that contraindicated with their circadian rhythms and their sleep patterns? So this is some of the stuff that we're trying to review. So we presented 3 options. Now, other communities may have more options, but these were the options that we felt were really appropriate for Easthampton, given some of the obstacles we have. So option A is basically keep things the way they are. Option B would be to flip the elementary and the high school start times. So the high school would begin at 8:45 and go until 3:10. The middle school would pretty much stay the same. And the elementary, Mountain View School, would begin at 7:35 a.m. and go until 2 p.m. And option C, we left open for people to provide suggestions to us. And there are some really interesting suggestions, some that are worthy of additional exploration and some that have a lot of challenges associated with them. But I think it was really a good exercise for us to undertake. So I think you can see from looking at this data that of the 500 or over 500 people that responded, 55% of respondents voted for option A, which was to keep things the way they are. 30% voted for option B, about 8% option C, and then there were about 7% that were undecided. Jean, do you want to make any comments about unpacking this slide?
Yeah, so the one note that I wanted to put on there is that you can see that I colored option C and undecided, both different shades of orange. In the future slides, I grouped them together because there was a lot of very similar responses that option C, folks who selected option C and folks who selected undecided shared. They both were weighing, similar things. So I ended up grouping them moving forward. Yeah, well, kind of in the next slides, it sort of breaks down a little bit more detail about those, but this is the general overview of where all of the respondents were.
Okay, so Jean, do you want to go over the next few slides?
Sure.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I know you can't see us as well right now, but can I ask a quick question, and maybe this will be answered in your future slide, but
Sure.
Do you have a breakdown of the respondents? So we know that 90% of them were parents of elementary students, or whatever the breakdown might be. Do we have a little bit more detail before we go further into what the overall percentages were?
Yeah, I do. So I broke it down a little bit differently than you asked. In the future slides, I kind of broke apart like what parents were saying. The majority of the response was parents. There was about 299, 305 parents. Others were students and staff. And there, of course, in the parenting category is some that overlap, both that are staff members and parents of students in Easthampton. So I sort of noted where that was the case. I have all of the data in a really large Excel spreadsheet that I was kind of organizing and working through, but in the following slides, I've shared kind of some of the key takeaways from that. But if there's more questions, more specific questions, I can answer them as we go or at the end if you'd like. Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. Just in terms of that parent, that sounds like roughly, 65% or whatever like that, or 60%. Do you have, was there a differentiation of their children's age, or was there not broken down that way?
If we do have the option to do that, I didn't specifically pull that apart just yet. There are some trends that you can kind of see where parents of younger students had different responses, and we can see that in the data because folks were able to select, that they were parents and then what schools their children would attend next year. So we are able to see, we can break that down further to really dig in, but in general, the answers were pretty spread out, and also like younger parents, some of the things that younger parents said were around childcare and things like that. So we can kind of talk about that a little bit later. So there was some differentiation in the data, and we have the ability to pull more data out there too. So if there's additional questions that we don't get to in this presentation, I can go back to the data and pull some other stuff out if we want to.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. And I'm gonna leave my video off just so that I don't have the internet problems, if that's okay. All right, so this is a little bit of a breakdown, Maren, similar to what you were asking. I thought this was an important thing to share because there was a differentiation between what parents, staff, and students were saying. This is not broken down by parents of different age groups, but you can see that students, surprisingly, were strongly in favor of option A, and it is noteworthy to say that almost 100% of the students who fill out the survey are high school students. For obvious reasons, there were not as many K through 8 students filling out the survey. So high school students were in support of option A, which is to stay the same. And then parents, staff were sort of in between parent and student response, and the parents were about split, 50-ish% of parents thinking that option A would be a good fit, and 31% of parents selecting option B, and option C / undecided was about 16%. I picked the parent responses because that was the largest to kind of dig very deep in. I have three more slides of parent information because we had the largest response from parents, but you'll see in the following slides too some more information about what staff and students were reporting as well. So, and Dr. Leclerc, if there's something that you want to add or clarify, please jump in. And I apologize this for being really text heavy, but I feel like for accessibility reasons, it's best to just like put a lot of that on there, and then folks can review this meeting and be able to pause the video and see the data that's presented here. But this is some takeaways from parents who selected option A. So on this previous slide, we're looking at this option A, that light blue, 52% of parent responses. Some of the common themes that came up in this group are that there, no change needed because the current schedule of school works for their family, meaning work schedule, childcare, and afternoon activities. They stated that no change was necessary, and also that high schoolers are doing fine with the schedule as it is now. They also indicated a common theme that was that they were concerned about afternoon activities for high school students, meaning, athletics, after extracurricular activities, healthcare and mental health care appointments came up a couple of times. I wanted to acknowledge that that was part of the after school consideration. I had 126 written responses of about 175 parents who chose option A. So that was like a really good written response. And 33% of those parents indicated an interest or concern about after school activities for high school students. And then an interesting point that I think I've talked to Dr. Leclerc about quite a bit is I'm really interested in this other group, a large group, 88 of the 126 written responses. Now, I did not include the folks who didn't put any written thing. 88% or 88 of the 126 indicated that they were extremely worried about a negative impact to childcare if we were to select option B, because they were concerned that 7:35 a.m. is too early for young children to start school. So this group of people who are wanting to stay the same were hesitant because a potential change to an early start time would cause negative impacts to childcare, meaning that their child would need to be in care from 7:35 a.m. potentially until 5:30 or 6 p.m. Each day, so that their concern was not about the high school. And in fact, most of those folks indicated, yes, I understand that this is an important change. However, you're creating a different problem for folks early on in the morning. Does that make sense? I know it's like kind of wonky, but it's possible in this sub bullet here, it's possible that many people in this group would be open to a later start time for high school students, but they're not willing to have K-5 start so early to compensate for that change. So I would be interested in, kind of exploring this a little bit further, but I thought that was a really strong thing that came out in the data. I anticipated that there would be quite a lot of people concerned about after school activities for high schoolers, but I didn't anticipate such a large number of parents were really, really concerned about 7:35 a.m. start time for little kids. And then also important to note is that some parents expressed concern over how CTEC students would be impacted if we were to change the schedule. And then here's a few quotes of that documentation. Can you all hear me okay? I feel like I'm breaking up a little. Okay.
You're doing well.
Okay. So here's a few of these quotes from the data that parents reported. This was the written part that I feel like we were able to really get rich data from. Each of the quotes that I've selected throughout the presentation represent kind of a common theme or things that people have said more than once. These aren't just like one person that's saying that. It is a quote, but I think that they kind of represented or well said how other people were also responding. So there was some concern you can see about the first one, if high schools to start later, they would be supportive of a high school start that would be starting late. But they're just, you can see here, are not interested in elementary school students starting early because of the burden for after school childcare. Let's see, a similar comment, the second one, and the third. I wanted to really represent that those were common themes from parents. And then on the other side, similarly,
with option A, things will stay as they are. Things are, going fine for me. My students are doing fine. And that was a staff member and a parent of a young kid. And then there was a few comments about the older students being home early to take care of the younger students. That came through medium, not as many students as I thought would have, that wasn't as strongly represented as I thought it would, but it was common enough to mention. And that a big thing that I heard was that it works for our schedule. It works for me now, no change, everything's fine. So that was kind of a brief summary of that. And then on the flip side, here are the parents that selected option B. Option B is the start times that Dr. Leclerc mentioned earlier. It's a flip of elementary and high school start times. Interestingly, as much concern that was expressed for folks from option A, worried that option B would cause a lot of stress for their work. A theme that came up here was that a lot of people said that option B would actually work better for them because they wouldn't need to worry about morning childcare. So as many folks that were worried in the first choice about afternoon care, this is a group of parents who are happy that kids have the possibility to go to school early. Many parents who said that their work start time at 8 o'clock, that they're supposed to be at work at 8 or even 9 a.m. makes it really difficult for the current schedule for them, that they rely on morning childcare so that they can get to work. So they said that this would actually work better for them. And then many parents selected option B, even though they recognize that the start times would impact childcare in the evening. That they felt like those adjustments that would be required if we were to change would be worth it, because the students, high school students, would be getting the sleep that they need and have all of those positive outcomes that they require really for additional sleep. So I thought that was strong, that they were willing to take one for the team and send the kids early to school so that the high school students would have more sleep. And then the high school student parents, this is a little bit in answer to your question, Marion. High school parents in this group who answered option B, were very supportive of their children being able to sleep. And you'll see that in some of these quotes. So this first quote, a person wrote, "We love option B. My daughter will be able to get an extra hour of sleep in the morning, that she participates on a high school sports team, which meets before school usually. And so a later start time means that she can practice at 7 a.m., which to me felt like, whoa, that's, still not meeting the purposes of this. However, then when you think about a kid who has to go to school at 6 to practice, moving that to 7, that's an extra hour of sleep for that student. Another comment from a high school parent said, "As a single mom, it would have made my life so much easier to have an earlier start time in elementary," meaning when her kid was in elementary. "Now that my kid is in high school, a later start time would help him have a healthier, happier life, more energy for after school activities, and it would be more feasible to walk to school." And so you can see that same kind of theme, high school parents saying that this is what they need. And then on the other side, parents of younger kids. Again, on the third one on the right-hand side, you can see that a younger parent or parent of younger kids says, with option B, I won't need before school care. So I think that really it's going to be a trade-off of morning and evening or morning and after school care that you're kind of having to consider. And then the last one says, "I'm struggling to get my kindergartner on the bus in time for me to drive my younger children to daycare to get to work by 9. A switch would greatly benefit me." So this is sort of what I was alluding to earlier, that the morning work schedules would be helped for some parents. Dr. Claire, do you want me to continue with the staff part?
Sure.
Okay, so the next ones I just included some quotes, less graphs and analysis, but many of the themes were consistent, but I wanted to specifically represent staff on here because there was some comments that came back that said staff really wanted to be heard. So this is, we're listening to staff specifically in this one. Specifically the first one that is mentioning that they are in support of keeping it the same. That infant daycares don't open before 7, so being at school, meaning to teach, before 7:30 is almost impossible. So this is a parent who has a baby or a toddler who is a teacher or a staff member working at a PK to 5 level who would struggle to get to work on time because daycares don't open before school would start. So that's an option A, person in favor of option A. There is a mention of, as an elementary teacher, I don't want to see my students spend more time in childcare. That would be, in reference to having potentially kids staying till 5:30 after arriving at 7:30 in the morning. And then mentioning about after school sports for high school students, that they don't want high school students to miss their last period classes to travel to games or practice. And then on the other side, you have people who are in favor of option B, supportive of the research that sleep is good for kids. The bottom one there says elementary students are much more alert and able to focus in the morning. By afternoon, they're kind of fading and exhausted. So there's some of that. And then I grouped everybody together for the undecided and option C to kind of give you a little bit of a taste of what some of those ideas were that came out. I really love this the most. I loved reading all of these responses because it was some creative suggestions that sort of coalesced around similar themes. As I mentioned before, that 7:35 start time for PK to 5 is really early for a lot of folks. So some chose option C or undecided and requested that there should be later start times for everyone, meaning that any school should not start before 8. Lots and lots of requests or questions about, can Mountain View, all students at Mountain View start at the same time? I know that adds a whole bunch of other questions. They suggested staggered start times somewhere around 8, 8:20, 8:45, or similar to that. And then there was a lot of suggestions about busing K to 8 students together. That would be kind of to allow for that Mountain View same start time. A lot of people in this group were really split down the middle, seeing the benefits of an extended or a late start time for high school students, but really still worried about high school students being able to get to work. It was really pretty split down the middle for this group. And then here's some student input. Sorry, I meant to put this slide before the last one, but student input. So some high school students were mentioning, I have to work at 3 on Thursdays and it would make me miss an hour of pay. A high school student saying that they enjoy having option A current staying as the same because they like to have time for sports and after school activities, and they get to stay at C-Tech. And then option B, all of the comments from students in option B were like, we really need to sleep. I'm super tired. Please let me sleep. That's kind of the summary for the students in option B. Again, which were not in the majority there, which was surprising. Dr. Leclerc, do you want to talk about some of these key takeaways here?
Sure. Thanks, Jean. So there's a general strong agreement that high school students need additional sleep. But really the feedback indicates that a 7:35 start team is very early for most students of any age. And there's interest in modifying the start times at Mountain View to have K-8 on the same schedule, which is very interesting. And students and families already adjust school, work, and childcare schedules as they transition through our school district. And this was a big kind of aha or takeaway that I had with Jean as we've been kind of culling through this last bullet. The current schedule is ideal for some and is challenging for others. A change would affect everyone, some positively and some negatively. So making this change is not going, there will be some people that will be left behind if we explore this change. There will also be some people that won't be happy if we keep things the way they are. So either way, there's going to be some people that are not going to be satisfied with the decision. And can you advance it one slide, Jean? So some other takeaways: high school after-school activities such as athletics, clubs, arts, and medical appointments would be impacted. This is a big one, the second bullet. CTEC student schedules would be impacted. CTEC is our collaborative folk school, which is our primary voc school for our high school students. There are 7 member school districts that have kind of the power of voting any changes to the CTEC schedule. And currently none of those schools are interested in changing the high school schedule. So basically, if our students were going to stay at CTEC, they would need to stay on the regular option A schedule that they have right now, or else it wouldn't work. So CTEC is not willing to adjust their schedule because none of these school districts that are their primary, have the primary membership in CTEC are exploring this option. And just a side note, for those of you that recall, Northampton and Amherst have done this flip, but they don't belong to CTEC and they don't send students to CTEC. So that's an important factor to understand. Busing and transportation is a huge factor in Easthampton in our ability to modify our start times for K-8. So if we take a beat there for a minute, we'll have 1,000 students in Mountain View School. To put 1,000 students on buses, we would need a lot more buses than we currently have. We currently have 7 buses accessible to us. So in order to move 1,000 students from their homes to Mountain View School all at the same time, we would need at least twice as many buses as we currently have. So it's not that, you know, we wouldn't want to explore this option, but we would need the city to fund a lot more buses. Childcare remains the biggest question for many parents and staff. Some families rely on morning care now and have concerns about daycare centers and before school care. After school care, the cost, the capacity, the availability, the transportation were all expressed as concerns. And it's difficult to know exactly how many families rely on older students to care for younger siblings after school. We didn't parse that out in our data. And so some kind of next steps that we feel we need to get some more data around. And this is what I'm saying to you. I won't make a recommendation tonight. We're awaiting results of a bus study that's being done by Durham. They're currently evaluating the busing needs based on distance, age, and capacity for the 1,000 students that will be moving to Mountain View in fall of '22. So they're doing that analysis right now, and we should have that by the beginning of December. Not saying that we are not exploring it yet as a whole K-8 building going at the same time. I'm saying that we're exploring it as a 2-tier, like we currently have 2 tiers, an elementary wave of busing and a middle school wave of busing. We need to gather some additional information about the number of students that would be impacted if we were to move forward with the option B, students that currently attend CTEC. We're also in the process of having dialogue with Champions, our EASI program through the collaborative, to assess if we have any additional capacity for before and after school programming within the walls of our schools. And we want to gather more data around the research and take additional steps to analyze the data from our research, from our study. If you have follow-up questions, as referenced maybe by Marin's wanting to have like a breakdown of the parent grade levels, we want to cull more data for you if you're interested in that. And so our proposal is to bring this, I think, do we have one more slide with the timeline? going back to kind of the timeline that we presented to you last spring, we'll be gathering that information, and we want to report back to the committee at the December meeting. I think it was December 14th. And that at that time, I will make a recommendation for your consideration, and then we can have final discussion and a vote by you in January, which is the timeline that we presented in the spring. So I open it up to questions, or if you have further research breakdowns that you'd like us to explore for that December meeting, happy to take those requests now. And I would just like to thank Jean for, you can see that she did a huge amount of work pulling data and quotes and trying to piece people's responses together. It was really, it was a big undertaking. So I really want to give kudos to Jean for diving into this work. Any questions or comments? Maren?
So yeah, thank you very much. This is definitely a great start with a lot of great data. I'm glad we had such a great turnout and so many people giving their feedback from the community, both from staff, students, and parents. Definitely helps us make informed decisions. So thank you for everybody that's done that. And thank you, Jean and Superintendent Leclerc, your staff, to make sure that we did get that responded and did get them engaged. So everyone's work on it. Thank you so much. I do think it seems like a great idea to really look at how might their parents and other people's answers might be different if, for instance, the after-school program or even before-school program was sort of taken off the plate, right? If we were able to make a more robust program at Mountain View that covered those ends of the needs, you know, how much would that make the situation easier for parents? I agree, trying to think about busing, you know, a single start time for that school, while that might sound like an awesome idea at sort of a conceptual level, the logistically to be able to bus that many students and that many parents trying to drive into that area all at once, unfortunately probably takes that off as any kind of a reasonable option. So while it's a great idea, it's probably not feasible. But yeah, I think that's a really good piece about the after school programs. I was also trying to look up the numbers and I just couldn't find it real quickly. You know, if for CTEC students, is it about 10% of our student population? A little less than that? It's about, we have what, 425 high schoolers. Do we have in the low 40s CTEC students, or is that CTEC and Smith combined? I couldn't remember. I was trying to find the answer, but.
No, we have at least 40 CTEC students, CTEC only. Yeah, I think it's higher than that.
Okay, so maybe around 10% of
Yeah.
our students may be CTEC students.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously that would be impactful if that adjustment couldn't have. So maybe that for us to continue to move forward with this, thinking about that reality, right? So 10% of our students couldn't have their high school time adjusted and match the really, I think, important option for students to be able to get trades experiences. So maybe having a little bit more creativity put into that side of the equation. What could happen for our students if their timing was different? How might we be able to fit CTEC in with our schedule with some additional creative sort of options at different ends of it, so that they could still go to CTEC and come to the high school and meet our later high school time, and just sort of see what those choices might be. So maybe just put a little bit more thinking into that side of it as well would be helpful for us.
Thank you.
Can I just add in here and ask a question to myself, I guess, or maybe to Dr. Leclerc? But one of the things, kind of going off what you were just saying, Maren, about, you know, if we could ask parents again with a different type of option. I'm thinking about a lot of the parents who are asking for a not 7:35 start time for little kids. So I'm really interested in investigating how might the answers change if the proposal was something slightly different, say 8 o'clock start time for K through 5, 8:25, 8:30. A lot of this is dependent on the busing, you know, how long it takes for the buses to do a turnaround. But, you know, just playing around with that, are we really choosing a 7:35 start time, or is there other options? And how would those options potentially change people's minds? Because what I saw is that a lot of people chose option A, stay the same, because they were really worried about that long day for little kids, or such an early start time, you know, particularly in the winter with, you know, kids waiting for the bus in the dark. I mean, there was lots of comments about that. So my question just in general is, how would that change if we had a different proposal for start time?
Yeah, and I think we can explore that once we have more information about the buses.
Dr. Leclerc, do you think that this timeline listed here in the next steps allows for a follow-up survey back out to the parents once some of these details and ideas get percolated around and come up with the next best possibility, that you'd have time to be able to engage parents and other students and staff to be able to give their feedback again on the new ideas?
To be honest, Maren, I think we would need to push it out because we won't really have the bus information. We possibly won't have the childcare information because I anticipate that our programs like Champions, they work under a state license for the actual site they're currently in. So they would need to go through relicensure once they go into Mountain View. And so they would have steps they would have to take in order to give us kind of an idea of what their capacity could be. And I think that if we target gathering that information in December, then you know, we could possibly put out a second survey, but maybe not until January. I think putting a survey out over the holidays is just not well conceived. So I would say we would have to push it out maybe until January, do a survey, and then, you know, cull through the results again. So it might push us out into February, maybe early March, which is still doable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, I would say that that's to get another round of feedback and another level of engagement is worth that extra month or, you know, 6 weeks in order to help inform the next steps. I think that for myself to be able to make this decision, I want as absolutely much impact or input as possible. And so having those ideas percolated and us be able to formulate what we do think our best option B might be, and putting it out there again, and getting that feedback again, I would say 6 weeks is a good time to provide in order to get to that next stage.
I agree. I like that timeline much better.
Okay. So I will plan still on coming back to you with an update in December of what I know at that time. And we'll push the survey out until January, like a new survey. If I need more time, I'll express that in December and we can have that conversation then. But otherwise, we'll look at the adjusted timeline that we just spoke about tonight.
And Dr. Leclerc, I don't mean to do this, but one of the other questions I have, so right now we already are having to do a sort of overhaul and review of transportation, even if nothing changes, right? So that's almost there's almost two different really big conversations that would have our transportation. One is that how's it going to work in our new school with our option A, as we're talking about here, let alone how is transportation going to work when we adjust it to some new option that's either option B or an option C. So, right, those are two different things that are having to be looked at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And that's part of what you're going to report back on in December is the transportation.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Okay, then we can go on.
Jean, can you stop your share? Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
And so the next two presentations belong to Julianne Levin, our curriculum director. And if I could just tell you a little bit of context. So first, she will be giving you an overview of the district's MCAS results. And then kind of the next piece is that she's going to give you the kind of overview of our ESSER 3 funds, which every school district was eligible for. It's our COVID relief funds. As part of receiving ESSER 3 funds, we're mandated to do some stakeholder engagement, and Julianne did a survey out to all stakeholders, and she's going to kind of share with you what some of the feedback was and kind of give you a rough sketch of what we did with our ESSER 3 application. We haven't touched ESSER 3 funding yet. It's for like next year, but she had to turn in the application already. So Julianne, thank you for being here, and you can take it away.
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm also going to share my screen. Hi, everyone. I haven't seen you in so long. Yay. Oh, not Jonathan. I saw Jonathan on Saturday. That was awesome, by the way. Does everyone know that Jonathan came and was at our event on Saturday? That was organized by Jean Libby. This is the dream team here. Yeah.
I look forward to the next one.
Oh, yeah, Jean's basically planned it already. So, all right. I'm going to share my screen. And here we are, the Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System. So exciting. It's loading. All right, so y'all know me, but here I am again, giving you the MCAS update for the day. I want to give some context to start with. There's a story here. Of course there is. The commissioner actually included a letter with every MCAS parent report. You may have gotten those if you're a parent, and gave us some information about why it was important to give MCAS in 2021, and yet we should take it with a grain of salt. So I want to give you, between me and you, we should always take standardized testing results with a grain of salt. But this year, maybe more than ever. In 2021, there was a shortened format for grades 3 through 8. So instead of having multiple questions that would you'd be able to see across multiple questions whether a student was mastering a standard. In the shortened format, there was one question per standard assessed. So if there was a miscue in the question for the student, they may very well have mastery of that standard, and yet MCAS data wouldn't have showed that. So it was a very short test and really not a lot of reliability between whether a student was answering a question correctly and whether that student had actually mastered that standard. So that feels like a big piece for me. And usually when the standards are assessed, they're assessed in like several modalities. So maybe there's like one that's a number problem, and then there's a word problem, and then there's one that uses the same standard and asks the student to create a model. Those are very different skills. And so if you're trying to assess a standard using just one of those modalities, I don't trust that data the way that I might have slightly more trusted the data from the previous MCAS years. There's also some options for the testing environment. If you were hybrid in the spring, if you stayed remote in the spring, you took MCAS in your home. So that's just a different testing environment than we've ever seen in MCAS data. So again, like a little reason to be wary of the results. The commissioner specifically told us, I'm sorry, I missed no comparable data from, so in 2020, we didn't do MCAS. So there's a whole year we missed. That was another piece of context from the commissioner. And the commissioner specifically said, don't compare your 2019 data to your 2021 data. And I'm not even going to do accountability this year because I don't want you to compare these two sets of data. Great. So why did we take MCAS last year if there are all of these reasons why we shouldn't use these data in a way that we used to? Because what it did give us a little bit of insight into is how did our students do in the world of COVID with remote learning compared to students around the state with similar subgroups and schools. And that is actually good information. Like we want to know if COVID and remote learning impacted our students more or less than other places in the state. So I think there was a reason. There was data to glean from the experience of taking MCAS in the spring of 2021, even though there are all of these reasons why we're not going to compare this MCAS data to previous data. And with that, I give you the MCAS data. I did decide, for the sake of your time, not to break out every grade level or every school, because the truth is we're about to be a pre-K to 8 school, and why not look at our data like that? If you do want to break it down further, you should feel welcome to go to school and district profiles on the DOE website, and you will get a very, very detailed breakdown of exactly how we did at every grade level. But for, again, my purposes of not giving too much credence to these data, but to really just give you an overview of how our students did compared to other students like them across the state. You can see from this graph that we are very close to how the students did across the state. Across the board, really, we had higher participation than a lot of other districts, but our students scored in the ranges that were very similar to how the state performed. Anyone can interrupt me at any time if you have questions. These are all also public data, so anyone can go and look at them further if they'd like, or contact me and I will talk to you about them for much longer than you'd like. So your choice. This is our ELA 3 to 8 English Language Arts. This is grades 3 to 8 mathematics. I'll go ahead and let you know, I don't think we did as well here, which is supports our theory that not having a strong core mathematics curriculum is problematic for a district. So good news is that we were able to secure the Accelerating Mathematics Grant this year, which meant that the state paid for us to adopt a new K through algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 mathematics curriculum. So we're super excited about that. And we're currently implementing it, and it just feels amazing to have a sequenced program from K to 10 or 11. So I'm not feeling terrible about these data because I think it does speak to our core programming. It doesn't speak about our teachers or our students at all. It speaks to not having a sequenced mathematics program. Since I'm talking about mathematics curriculum, here's a little brain break for you. This is an example of I was so delighted when I put this slide in earlier today. I was like, I'm going to make them do a math problem. This is so cool. But I did want to show you this because I think it's one of the coolest things ever. There's a protocol in our math program. It's called Which One Doesn't Belong? And it's meant to further student discourse about mathematics. And so what the students are tasked with doing is looking at 4 options and deciding which of the 4 options doesn't belong. And then they engage in a group discussion about what their conclusions are. So this is from grade 6, just for context. Grade 6, unit 6, lesson 18. And the learning goal for students is we're going to use graphs and equations to show relationships involving area, volume, and exponents. So, school committee, which one doesn't belong? I'm so delighted with myself right now. I can't even tell you.
I mean, I'm inclined to guess it's the exponential equation.
Okay, so C.
Yep.
But you have to explain your reasoning.
Well, yeah, I feel like I need more context for the question, but because it's a very different kind of equation than the others that don't include exponents. Somebody else pipe up, please.
Yeah, somebody else pipe up.
I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to pretend. It's been too long. Give me a language question.
Well, Maren, are you going to try?
There we go. I'm just going to agree with Jonathan, actually, because the relationship between X and Y is changing in a different relationship for C than it is for A and B and D.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So that's an excellent example of using precise, accurate mathematical language to explain your thinking, which is what we want students to do here, right? That's the point of this. So the short answer is, right, we give this kind of problem to students because any one of these could not belong. There's a very good mathematical reason any one of these could not belong in this array. So by asking students to, and they know, so I'm tricking you because you're adults and you can take it. But the students know there's not a right answer. There are just different mathematical ways to explain which one wouldn't belong given a set of criteria. So that's the kind of inquiry and thinking our students are doing in this math program. And I just think everyone, I mean, I hope everyone, but me specifically, I'm really excited that we have this program. And I think that when I give you math, MCAS updates in the future, our math scores are going to be on par with what our ELA scores have been. And I'm really excited about that potential. So I just wanted to share that with you. And if you want to talk to me about why the other ones wouldn't belong, although you did see, that was the reason why that one didn't belong. But there are reasons why A wouldn't belong, or B wouldn't belong, or D wouldn't belong. And you can email me later and talk to me about it if you want to know. All right. Science, technology, and engineering. Grades 5 and 8 are the only 2 grades that take this particular MCAS. And this is not a worry point for me, but I'm so excited that these students are about to move into a new building where they're going to have access to maker spaces because their brains are really going to enjoy it. So I think we're doing great with our sequences in science, but there's so much to look forward to with Mountain View School. And very high participation. We had really above average participation across the board in comparison to the state. 10th grade ELA. Again, excellent participation and looking very, very solid. And 10th grade mathematics. But also 10th grade mathematics curriculum is also being updated this year, so it's exciting. And please stop me if you want to look at any of these for longer, if you have questions about any of them. I did want to just mention quickly, if there are parents on the call who are thinking about this, that there is still a modified competency determination in effect. So we all know that students have to pass MCAS in order to graduate or earn a diploma. Not so for COVID impacted grades. So successful completion of a relevant high school course is still allowable for both, not both, 2021 already happened, for the class of 2022. So the modified competency determination is still in effect for 2022. And for 2023, this is the score that students will have to, this is the score that students will have to earn in order to reach the graduation requirement. And this is the one for math. Again, this year, there's an option to successful completion of a relevant high school course. But moving on to next year's graduating class, they will have to, again, receive that qualifying score on the MCAS. Science is a little different. We'll be using the successful completion of a relevant high school course for a little longer. And then in the class of 2024, we'll need to earn that qualifying score. There are students who took the science, technology, and engineering test in February of 2020 before, we shut down everything. And those students' score will still apply. Those students' scores will still apply for the competency determination. Okay, we're about to make a huge transition. So if anyone has any questions about MCAS, now's the time. Why not? It's a fascinating subject. Come on, folks. Are you still thinking about which one doesn't belong? I hope so.
Definitely.
I'm just thinking
right.
about how much I appreciate that you keep using data as a plural word.
Oh, thank goodness. Do I?
Just throwing that out there.
Oh, good. No, I'm taking that as a compliment. It is, right? Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so now we're moving on to ESSER funding because we love acronyms. So elementary and secondary school emergency relief funding, and this is the third round. But I'm going to tell you a little about the second round because there's a lot in the third round that is actually what we're using the second round for. The first round was the emergency relief funding we used last school year. All right, so we did a community input survey, and it was pretty straightforward. Here are the categories we're allowed to spend the grant on. What do you think are the most important categories? And then some narratives about, did we miss anything? The top 5 categories were very clear. And these are those. Additional staff, providing additional mental health services and supports, after school and summer learning opportunities, professional development for teachers, and staffing and resources for routine COVID safety checks. It was really clear about that. There were maybe one vote for some other things that were out there, but this was a very clear top 5. So with that in mind, you'll notice 1, 2, and 5 are all about staffing. So we decided to spend a lot of money on staffing. It's a good thing. We really like staffing. So our total allocation was 1.6 million approximately, and there was a requirement that a 20% reservation was for activities addressing learning loss or the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on specific populations. You'll see both of those things coming up in what we wrote the grant application for. And as Allison said, this is a grant application for the 22-23 school year and the 23-24 school year. So we're using ESSER 2 this year. And again, I'm going to show you what we've used ESSER 2 on. That's going to come up again in ESSER 3 because we want to continue funding it for the next school years. So really the majority of the grant is spent on salaries. The need for staffing for a number of different reasons is the biggest thing for us right now. So there's some money for stipends, contract services, supplies and materials, travel and other costs. But really the majority of what we're looking at is adding some staffing. So here are the salaries that we've included.
Julian, can I just
Oh, yeah.
ask one question on that?
Of course.
one additional comment thing. My understanding too, maybe Dr. Leclerc or either one of Julianne, if you want to answer, like ESSER 2 is carrying over beyond just this school year though, right? I don't think it's all just being utilized this year.
Yes.
Okay, so it carries on through. It's not quite as black and white in terms of what you just said, in terms of which years are being funded by which grant.
No. It's, sorry, not years that are funded by the grant, but rather how we've written the applications to spend the grant monies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, I think that one of the pieces that would be helpful is maybe just to speak a little bit to the hiring, because we can put forward a lot of great ideas and seek positions, but if they're not being fulfilled because of hiring issues across the state and definitely in our city, if you could just speak to that as well, if there's stuff that we are trying to make happen, but not being able to make happen because of hiring, or if we may be looking at shifting from a hire to a consultant kind of situation as well. You could just speak to that as you're going through this. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and Allison, feel free to chime in on that too. So the first 6 positions here are positions that do not currently exist. These are our hopes and dreams for the next school year, so 22-23. So I can't tell you about hiring for those positions necessarily, but positions 7 through 12 that are not in bold, those are current positions that are filled in our district right now, currently being funded by ESSER 2. I'm not going to go through each of the positions, but if you want to just look at the list and if you want to ask questions about any one of them, let me know. So we are definitely having a hiring situation. These are filled positions. So these are not positions that we're having trouble hiring for. We actually have some pretty awesome people in these positions now that I'm looking at them. That number 12.
Can I just have a moment here? So number 1, I think, is worth saying something about.
I was really hoping you would say something about it. Yes.
When the focus groups were held for the new school, Mountain View, something that came out of those focus groups years ago, before I was here, was that there would be some efficiency that we would gain from bringing schools together. And one of the outcomes of that efficiency would be to decrease an administrator by 1. So that has been our plan all along as we've been moving into the direction of Mountain View. We knew we were going to decrease an administrator. However, no one could have foreseen a pandemic happening years ago when they had those focus groups. And what we have learned in the last 18 months or so is that we really need an additional administrator at Mountain View that will support students around mental health issues and social emotional needs. So we have a great number of students, as does every school district across the country right now, that are coming to us, either maybe never having gone to a school setting, or they've been in remote learning for a long time. They've suffered a trauma related to getting through the pandemic. There are a lot of children that are dysregulated in schools right now, not necessarily only students that are what we would call special needs students. Some of these children are regular education students. So it's not a special needs position that we need. We need support for our administrators and for the staff in our schools and for the families. If you think about the new structure in our school, we will have Dr. Torkia, who will be the head of school and will have oversight of the vision and mission of the building and general operations. And then we will have one administrator for a grade level span. So for example, one administrator that is responsible for pre-K through 2. That one person can only do so much. And so we really feel strongly that while we have access to these COVID funds, it's really the opportunity for us to bring in someone that is not necessarily at the same level. We're not saying another associate principal, but someone that is a coordinator or a supervisor of social emotional learning that can work with families, that can work with our counselors, that can provide strategies for our teachers and support for our administrators. And so that's really the impetus for the first position. It's something that we've seen in many other school districts. We're actually gathering job descriptions from other communities across the state to try and really focus on what our role will look like. But that's something that I just want to put out there. We really see it as a need. We see that it aligns with the survey results from key stakeholders that participated in the survey. And I just feel that given we're still in the midst of a pandemic, so I won't even say the post-pandemic world, because we're still going through it. We know, and we've been talking about it on this school committee for the past 18 months, that students have undergone something, and so we really need to put more support around them and around our staff as well. So that's the rationale for the first position.
Thank you, Dr. Leclerc.
I'll just say, I think that's an absolutely perfect use of these funds. I'm so pleased that there will be a high level position solely focused on this particular piece. I think it's going to be so important, and I really appreciate that. If I may, I think I'm probably predictably also really excited to see an additional library media specialist on this list, and I'm curious to hear what the vision for that position is, given that there are so many grades and I believe a couple of libraries within the building. Will we still have paras in the libraries working with that person?
Yeah, so we are really excited to have this position. It's going to be, so starting in January, we'll have someone in the position who is grades 6 through 8. I think it's posted right now. Is that right, Allison? Yeah, so the position is posted right now.
5 through 8.
Or 5 through 8, I'm sorry, of course, because Whitebrook's moving over. So it'll be a 5 through 8 position. It is a licensed librarian position, which we're super excited about because we've had paras historically in the libraries. And I mean, so library has been a special content area, right? But what I'm really hoping for this, if you want to talk the curricular vision, which is, what I'm going to take the stage on right now.
Totally.
I would really love this person to be someone who is collaborating with teachers and not necessarily having teachers like drop their kids off in the library, but someone who's coming with their class to engage in inquiry and research with the librarian as the expert, as the specialist. So that's my vision for it. I know that we are keeping some of the library para positions, for the purposes of hopefully making that vision a reality. We're also very aware that, budgets might, be a challenge in the future. And we just really want to make sure that that specific licensed librarian is a protected position somewhere. And so we elected to put it in the grant in order to make sure that it absolutely stays sacred. But we will have the paraeducators in the budget, in the operating budget as well.
I really appreciate that as well. Is the idea that come next school year, that licensed librarian will work across all of the grades, or still sticking with the 5 through 8?
So I think that there are kind of two options depending on the budget.
Sure.
So if there was, and this is like a wildest dream. Am I allowed to share my wildest dreams here, Allison? Thank you. I think like our best case scenario as a district is that we have 2 licensed library media specialists, that we have one for the K-5 library media area and one for the media center for 6 through 8. I can't say enough about how important this position is as a licensed position. It's not even for K-5, it's a place that students need to be gaining media literacy. And the more that we know about what is on the internet in general, the more I know that those are skills that are just incredibly important to be explicitly teaching. And for teachers to have a specialist that they could collaborate with from both the K-5 elementary and middle school level to be gaining both those media literacy skills and digital literacy. You know, there's so much that's untapped right now for those standards and those skills in our district. And so that, and also the one below it, number 3, that's the position for the maker spaces in Mountain View School. Between our new media centers and our maker spaces, like I hope you're getting chills like I am. I'm so excited for these positions and these places in this building. It's going to allow us to really address the technology needs and the growth of our students in this technological world in a way that we just haven't been able to before. So that's my vision. Rose-colored glasses at all times.
That's our vision.
Our vision, yay!
Yes. I mean, we talk a lot about these, and just I don't think I have to say to this committee, we really, as a school district, have not grown in positions in all the years that I've been here. I mean, yes, we've added a position. Someone could go back in our budget and see that we've added a position, but normally we would delete a position or cut a position and then add something else to, you know, kind of make it a wash. We've never really had a growth budget to explore things that we want to add on top of what we already have. And so these are positions that we've been talking about as a team throughout this pandemic. One, because of the pandemic, but also 2, because we're moving into a new school. And these are really essential pieces that, you know, we had a conversation earlier today that our teachers have been making do with the environment that they've been in for a long time, as many teachers do. You get used to the setting you're in and you make the best of it. But now that we're going into this new building, we need to be thinking a little bit more about, like, okay, what are we going to have access to and what do we need to really make it exceptional? And so these are the positions that we've been putting a lot of thought into. The other one that I would point out, just because Julian hasn't mentioned it yet, but kind of goes with number 1, is number 9, another counseling position at the high school. Again, to address these students that have been challenged with mental health issues through the pandemic, and really to provide more support than what we currently have at the high school. And I know this group, I came to this group probably either last meeting or the meeting before and showed you our numbers, which indicate enrollment has gone down at the high school. But mental health issues are skyrocketing at the high school. And so it can't be something that we ignore because it impacts the entire student body. So those were things that we heard loud and clear on the survey that people wanted us to focus on. And so position number 1 and position number 6 really encompass our district K-12 around mental health issues.
Yeah.
Oh, can I speak now, Madam Chair?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So Julianne, thank you for this. And this is all exciting. Being in the classroom, I know how important 1 and 6 are. For one, I'm curious to know, are you going to be looking for somebody with an MSW, adjustment counselor degree to fill number 1? And before we get into that, my second question is, Julianne, about our once shared vision of a dual language or / bilingual program. And I see no mention of this on this list. I do see K through 4 English learner teacher. And we did discuss that it wouldn't cost the district anything more to create this program if you do it year by year. So I want to put it out there again. You know that I've had some questions from parents and I've been trying to speak to you about it. I've reached out to Dr. Leclerc about it, and I just want to go on record that it was a dream that some of us shared for this new school to start a dual language program. And I really think it would help retain more families using our school system if we did have such an innovative program.
Yes, and I completely agree. We have been, so when I, let's see, at the start of 2020, January of 2020, we went into the pandemic with 2 people in our English learner department. And if just for let everyone know, what Lori's talking about is it's a two-way immersion kindergarten program is what we have been talking about. And it's a really great goal to have. It's an incredible program in the districts that have it, and certainly something that, you know, I've been dreaming about for Mountain View School. So we have just in the past couple of years had a real influx in our English learner population. And so from January 2020, so before the pandemic, we had 2 full-time positions for the whole district, pre-K to 12. We had 1 English learner teacher for grades pre-K to 4 and 1 for grades 5 to 12. Since then, we've added 3 full-time positions. So we went from a department of 2 to a department of 5 full-time positions. So I do feel like we are making progress towards this goal of actually being able to start a two-way immersion kindergarten program, or kindergarten classroom. It would be 1 classroom that we would offer probably. And so I do feel like we are on our way there, and we are still, along that vision. I have to do some more learning about how to actually run and direct a program like that, because I have not done that in my career, but I'm excited to learn about it. And I'm more excited that we have now a real department to support, looking at that together. And it's not just me solo trying to run a program with 2 teachers who are overstretched. So I do feel like we're making goals or making pathways towards that. I do think the pandemic. So yeah, Lori, we were planning to go to a conference together, right, in March of 2020 to learn about it and to figure it out together. Obviously, that didn't happen, and so we're a little delayed on that particular timeline, but I still think it's an important vision to keep. And I feel much more supported, I think, in the district to be able to pursue that vision now, because we have enough staffing finally to address our English learner population. So yeah.
Well, that's phenomenal. And I just want to continue to offer my support. I still get the emails from the Mass Association of Bilingual Educators. There are still conferences, there are workshops. So let's talk, okay? Because I want to support you. Thank you. And about my first question, so are you envisioning, and no, that's okay. I'm just
that's
really
right.
thrilled to hear
no,
your
I'm sorry, I missed
answer
that. Yes.
to the dual language. Thank you so
MSW.
much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Allison, I think we can you speak to that? Because I think we're still working on that job description. I don't know if you've come
Yeah, we
to
are
a
still
decision
working
about
on
it.
the job description. Julianne, Sarah, and I are working on that together. Sarah Mochak and Julianne and I. There are some that have a licensed MSW, and there are some that have different, similar guidance background, that sort of thing. So I think that we'll have to parse that out.
Yeah.
But yes, that sounds like those are the types of backgrounds that we're looking for, but we're also looking for someone that has some kind of supervisory license, director license or a coordinator license through DESI that can kind of oversee staff.
So my teaching district has created a position. I'm not sure if you have spoken with them.
I
Dr.
haven't.
Leclerc, you may want to, because I have seen that expand that position and how they created this new supervisory role for someone who originally was, on in that counseling type of role, but now is a supervisor in the district. So you may want to pursue
I
that.
will.
And
Yep,
she has been extremely helpful, not only for the students, but with faculty issues during the pandemic. And she is an MSW.
Great. Thank you.
So I would just like to add one last thought too on this. I
There
think
are more slides. This is not your last thought.
well, it's not my last thought either, even if it's the last
Okay.
slide or not. So
Okay. All right. got it.
Okay. I just think that it's phenomenal. I think that, definitely important for both Julianne and Dr. Leclerc to be sharing your vision and not just getting by, and agree this is, if anything comes out of this as a positive out of the pandemic, it certainly is additional funding to really be able to grow these positions at a really important time for our district. And I think the challenge for all of us will be not in 3 or 4 years when suddenly we have to put a budget together that doesn't have ESSER funding in it, but is to be growing the value, sort of get to your love of data, both of our love of data, Julianne, to start, once these positions are in place, culling the valuable data that shows why these are so critical to keep, to be a part of making sure then that they don't become cut when they don't have grant funding, and that there really is shown a value to them to be there, to continue, and that they're a needed part of our school district. So we've got obviously a number of years to get there when we've got to push that piece of it, but can't start too soon to make sure that we've got a strong case for keeping all these positions and we don't just suddenly have a mass cut in 4 years from now.
Yeah. Well, one of the benefit to you, maybe not to me necessarily, but grant reporting requires that you put a measure in for how you're going to measure, obviously, to the success of your grant spending. So we are already naming the data sources that we'll be using to, and you're right, like of course I'm doing this because this is actually secretly what I love to do, maybe not so secretly. So we will have some really good I think ways to tell, as we have in the past, like what's been successful in our grant spending and what hasn't been so successful that really should never touch the operating budget. So yeah, I'm excited to do that work actually. Yeah, it's exciting. Okay, next slide. So just the categories that are not salaries, because we do have the opportunity to spend some money in other ways, stipends for teachers so that they can spend non-contracted hours doing social emotional learning, accelerated learning, PD. Always want to be able to say yes when a teacher comes to me and says, I really want to take this course, but I can't afford it. Like I want to be saying yes to those requests. So it's always good to have that in there. Contract services. So one of the things that we haven't been able to support in our operating budget or in our title funding, which is where it used to belong, is tutoring for math intervention. We've been able to maintain our tutoring for ELA intervention, but not for math. And so having some money in there for math tutoring is important. We also have an increase in our substitute pay. We're trying to remain competitive with attracting substitutes to our district. So that's been a piece, I think, of the negotiations. And so we just want to make sure that we're able to continue offering that. Not that there are many substitutes out there. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about substituting, please do. We pay you. So travel, it's a sort of misnomer right there. No one's traveling. to do professional development right now. But travel is the line where we take any kind of registrations, even for Zoom webinars. So again, just really trying to support teachers who are doing additional professional development outside of the district. And then we put some money in there for rentals for tents and buses, because who knows what's going to happen next. And maybe we will need tents again next year. And busing, of course, we've all heard tonight, is expensive. And so we also did put some stuff in there, but we're hoping to use that busing money for summer school buses. But if we have to use it for something else, that it's there for us. So last category is supplies and materials. And yep, we've got some materials there for learning loss and acceleration. Those are really intervention, like specific programs for intervention for students. Curriculum materials for our EL, special education populations that have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. After school and summer school materials. And then, as we know, we had to stop sharing supplies recently, because things aren't sanitary. So we have had to purchase a lot of extra supplies, and we assume that we will have to continue purchasing individual supplies for students instead of group sharing supplies. So a little bit of money in there to be able to continue that safe practice. And that is finally it. But just jot down that email address if you want to take me up on any of the offers. Math, data, I can't remember what else I offered, but whatever you need, give me a shout, and I'm going to stop my share.
Julianne, thank you. I really like the presentation and the plan going forward that all of you worked on. As a teacher, I can tell you every school district that I know of really did not want MCAS this year, particularly because we knew that the scores were going to be extremely depressed, and because our students were already going through so many mental health issues. So, the two positions, the 1 and 6, I think are just phenomenal. Every school is trying for as much addressing those needs as possible. And I'm really excited about that. And again, I think every choice that was made by the team was really significant, and is going to do nothing but make everything better. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Me too. Great. Well, I'm done, but again, reach out if you have any questions, or I guess we'll find a way to get the presentation to you so that you have all of those numbers concretely. And you are all doing an awesome job. You keep showing up. Nicely done. Nicely done. So
thank you.
Thank you, Julianne. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you. That was good.
I'm all set.
You're all set. Okay, so we have matters for action, and then other, and then we'll be gone. So Marissa, do you want to hit it?
Sure. I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 12, 2021 meeting.
I second that.
Okay. Maren?
Sorry. Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa?
Marissa Crary, aye.
Jonathan?
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Lori?
Lori Garcia, aye.
And Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
Motion to approve the school payroll dated 10/21/2021 in the amount of $553,319.72.
Second that.
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa Crary, aye.
Jonathan?
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Lori Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
Motion to approve accounts payable authorization for payment dated 10/21/2021 in the amount of $108,507.12.
I'll second that motion.
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa Crary, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Lori Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye. Do we have anything another? No? Well, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
I guess.
Oh, okay.
Good luck in the elections, everybody.
Okay. Do we
Get
have a
out and
motion?
vote, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, get out and
Yes.
vote, even if there isn't a contestant.
Do we have a motion?
Now I'll move, we adjourn.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Okay. Maren,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Curry, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Lori Garcia, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you in November. Be well.
Happy
Buenas
Halloween,
noches.
everybody.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.